Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning and welcome everyone present in the chamber and those listening online to the business of the Growth Scrutiny Committee, and welcome to our two new members over there, Councillor Grantham and Councillor Daish. Thank you for joining us. My name is Councillor Sam French and I am the chairman of this committee, with Councillor Ruben Robinson, who is the vice chairman, who is also present. The audio-visual feed of this formal public meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's website. All comments to be raised today will remain accessible online. There's no fire drill planned for this morning. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please exit the building through the reception and assemble in the front car park. Please have any mobiles, laptops and iPads on silent mode. The hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman, who will invite you to speak in turn. I ask that you indicate early when you wish to speak. On to apologies for absence. Andrew, do we have any apologies?
We received no apologies, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. On to item 2, declarations of members' interest. Do we have any declarations? Nope. On to item 3 then. Minutes of the meeting of the Growth Scrutiny Committee held on the 27th of January 2025. Members are being asked to consider the accuracy of the minutes. Please turn to pages 5 to 14 of the agenda pack. The minutes are not for debate, but to agree that they are correct and an accurate record of the previous meeting. If you have any questions on the content of the minutes, please contact officers outside of the meeting. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Baxter, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Sorry, I'm not proposing.
Oh, okay.
I'm commenting on the accuracy of the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you for redoing these minutes and for putting some of the bits in that we asked for. On page 10, 3/4 of the way down, there is a significant error. It looks small, but it is big because it changes the context of the thing, which is the word as should read was. However, in that paragraph, you notice that it says in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 15F. 2 paragraphs later on, there's a note that Councillor Dilks was ejected from the chamber following a ruling of the chairman for Councillor Dilks to stop speaking. Can you please have inserted into the minutes the procedural rule by which you ejected Councillor Dilks?
Yeah, apology. Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Yes, in regards to that correction and in terms of that, I'm happy to put that into those minutes in terms of that counter procedure rule as well. Thank you.
And can you please clarify here what that procedure rule is?
It's at the discretion of the chairman, I believe.
Chairman, what we'll have to do, Councillor Baxter, is let you have that after the meeting. If you've given us a bit of notice, we could have got that rule for you. I'll just have to go through the Constitution and claim it.
Let me save you time. I've been through the Constitution, and there is no procedure rule by which the chair can unilaterally kick someone out of the chamber. That should have gone to a vote, and Councillor Dilks still deserves an apology from the chair for the terrible way he was treated.
Is that in regards to a member of the committee or an observer, or is that just anybody?
Let me refresh your memory, Councillor French. You didn't like what Councillor Dilks was saying, and therefore you threw him out of the chamber unilaterally, ignoring the Constitution and ignoring the procedures by which this council has run. It wasn't only rude, it was unconstitutional, and I think the minutes should reflect that.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to just wait for you, or should we go on to the next minutes and then vote?
I think you should move on, Chairman.
Yeah, okay.
I do think at the last meeting when we agreed the amendments in the minutes, it was agreed that these would be circulated with us in advance. Unless I'm wrong, I haven't received these in advance of the meeting, other than it being as part of the agenda pack. So I think, Mr. West, you made the point that this should have been raised in advance. If we received the minutes in good time, like we were promised at the last meeting, this could have been raised in advance. But I don't think we, as a committee, given the errors that are still within these minutes, we can accept them as a committee, given that amendments still need to be made.
Chairman, the minutes are circulated with the papers 5 clear working days before the meeting.
Yeah,
and
standard.
that's the opportunity to raise issues. They're not supposed to be a verbatim note, but if a councillor's got an issue with the minutes, then they can challenge them as soon as they receive them, and we can deal with it.
Councillor Baxter.
Chair, that's not what was suggested at the last meeting. I accept that that is the protocol, and apologies for not raising it before this meeting, other than I did raise it at the last meeting. My point hasn't changed. Councillor Dilks was ejected improperly from the meeting, and he deserves an apology. However, I agree with Councillor Dyer that these minutes in their current form cannot be approved.
Councillor Gibson.
Councillor Baxter, the minutes are in front of you to sign off as a correct record. I've tried to meet Councillor Dilks 3 times. I've offered 3 meetings and he's refused to turn up. I've tried to speak to him. He doesn't want to talk.
That's very interesting, but irrelevant.
Thank you. I think, is it necessary for every single procedural rule to be outlined in the minutes for every single action that's taken?
No,
I
Chairman.
don't think that constitutes to accuracy in that sense. I think
No, it doesn't, Chairman.
as a
That's
record,
a style issue, but I'm happy for you to take a vote and whether you feel that these are a correct record.
I do feel that they are accurate. There might not be in certain people's their opinion the right style, the right kind of thing there, but I think they are technically accurate as a record. So we'll move to the vote.
Chairman, can I request a recorded vote, please?
Yeah. How many do you need? Just 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me just, apologies. So it's just, do we have a second, Chairman?
We do have a second, Councillor Corey.
Oh, Councillor, you're seconding.
Yeah, I would like to second that. Thank you.
On agreeing the minutes of the meeting held on 27th of January 2026, I'm going to read out. Can I ask members to say either for and again, yes or no? So yes, saying inclined, agreeing. No, with that motion. So I'll start with I'll go with the chairman, the vice chairman, then alphabetical. Councillor Sam French.
Yes.
Councillor Ruben Robinson. Councillor Rundell is not here. Councillor Baxter. No. Councillor Bowles. Abstain. Councillor Corey. No. Councillor Condell. Yes. Councillor Daish. Yes. Councillor Dyer. No. Councillor Grantham. And Councillor Hastings. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 yes. 1, 2, 3, 4 no, and 2 abstentions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, minutes of the meeting for the Grove Scrutiny Committee held on the 24th of March, 2025. 2026. Why is it 2025? Members are being asked to consider the accuracy of the minutes. Please turn to pages 15 to 24. The minutes are not for debate, as again, but to agree they are correct and accurate record of the previous meeting. If you have any questions on the content of the minutes, please contact officers outside of the meeting. Councillor Baxter.
Sorry, this is a new rule. I don't know where it fits in with the Constitution about contacting about matters of accuracy outside the meeting.
It's not a rule, Councillor. It just makes things easier. So essentially, the best kind of accurate form of the minutes can come to this meeting, and we can agree on it here, rather than, well, it's essentially ready for us to agree today, rather than messing around like we have been.
Oh, well, I apologise for messing around. Personally, I think that following the rules is, I mean, yes, it's convenient if people do all the messing around before the meeting, but I would like to raise an issue with these minutes because I think if they are accurate, they may be dangerous or ambiguous. When you look at page 19, about halfway down, the last sentence of the 3rd bullet, officers confirmed that meeting rooms were available to let to any group for a reasonable fee. Can you just clarify what is meant by any group, any religious, political, far right, far left, whatever, your officers are saying that meeting rooms are available to any group. Is that correct?
Chairman, you're being asked to consider whether they're an accurate record. If that was said, I wasn't present at that meeting. If that was said, then it's an accurate record.
Yeah, just as Nigel says, if it's an accurate record, it's an accurate record. What's meant by reasonable is not really what we're debating.
Chairman, it's not matters arising. I think this is what Councillor Baxter's trying to introduce, matters arising from the minutes. And we don't have matters arising. We're just here to consider the accuracy. If Councillor Baxter wants further clarification on a question arising from the minutes, then we're quite happy to provide that for him.
Chair, I'm sorry.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I think for purposes of accuracy, it wasn't any group. I think Councillor Kelly made a point. It was charitable group, wasn't it? And if we look further down on the minutes in what was resolved, you can see that it references charitable organisation. So that's referenced below. So I think where it says any group, that isn't accurate. I think it was charitable group.
Okay, the context is there then.
Chairman, we can add the word charitable.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the vote. Do I have a proposer? Me? Do I have a seconder for the minutes? Councillor Hastings? Okay. Those in favour? For the accuracy of the minutes? Those against? Abstentions? Okay. It's carried. Announcements. Item 5, announcements by the chairman and executive councillors and lead officers. No announcements from me. Do the executive councillors have any announcements? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen and fellow councillors. I'll keep it brief. Final preparations are well underway for this year's UK Real Estate and Investment Infrastructure Forum. We officially launched our involvement on Tuesday, the 5th of May, and since then, a full PR campaign has gone live, including social media, videos, and press coverage to raise awareness of Lincolnshire's presence at the event UK Reef 2026. At UK Reef, Greater Lincolnshire will be showcasing a strong investment offer. That includes our investment prospectus, the housing strategy, and an investment property catalogue featuring 22 oven-ready opportunities that are ready to go. We'll also be hosting 8 sector-focused speaker sessions across the 3 days within the Greater Lincolnshire Pavilion. The national event itself takes place from the 19th to the 21st of May at the Royal Armouries in Leeds. I'll be attending the UK Reef in person and will make sure I feed back to colleagues at a future meeting on the conversations we've had, the level of interest shown and any opportunities that come out of it. I also wanted to share with you the positive work with our defence sector. The Greater Lincolnshire Regional Defence and Security Cluster continues to expand, now representing over 130 businesses across the region. The recent Greater Lincolnshire Regional Defence and Security Cluster annual dinner with General Sir Richard Barrons as the keynote speaker was well received and well attended event with lots of business-to-business follow-ups generated by bringing cluster members together. Sir Richard Barrons, as the co-architect of the 2025 Strategic Defence Review, was the keynote speaker sharing critical insights with cluster members. But equally, he took home an excellent impression of the Lincolnshire cluster, its commitment, breadth and ambition and capabilities. We will build on that messaging and take into UK Reef. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. It's not an item for debate. Do we have any other executive council announcements? Okay, moving on.
No,
It's not. It's
point
not an
of
item. It's an
order.
announcement. It's not a point of order. What point of order?
My point of order is that it always has been permissible for people to ask questions. This is the only place we get to hold cabinet members to account, other than the one question at full council. I have a question specifically on what Councillor Kelly has said. I also have a question for you, Chair. If I can't raise a question with you here, where is the opportunity to raise it?
You can, this is okay, it's an announcement by Councillor Kelly, and all he's doing is talking about the things he's just mentioned. It's not a debatable item. That's all I'm saying.
Well, he's given us inaccurate information.
So, point of order for clarity. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the member, with regret, I have to say that what the member has said is ambiguous and potentially misleading to the council. I'm sure he hasn't done it on purpose, but when he talked about our investment prospectus, I don't believe that this council has an investment prospectus, does it?
Councillor Kelly?
Councillor Baxter, yes it does, and further information may follow on shortly. Thank you.
Okay, it seems bizarre to me that there are two investment prospectuses, because the Greater Lincolnshire Mayor has an investment prospectus that she's launching at UK Reef, and you're telling us that we're also launching a separate investment prospectus. That seems to me peculiar.
Okay. Councillor Kelly?
Councillor Baxter, thank you for your question. We do have an investment prospectus, but we also work in collaboration with our strategic key stakeholders as well in order to optimise all investment opportunities for the greater benefit of Greater Lincolnshire and its residents. Thank you.
And then I have a question for you, Chair. We were told last time that in the minutes of the last meeting that a task and finish group would be proposed to the Overview Scrutiny Management Board. Has it? And if so, why hasn't the Overview Scrutiny Management Board got any record of that decision being considered?
We've actually got one better. Remember your original proposal about sending it to the audit? Yeah. So the Chief Executive has contacted the group leaders with a proposal involving the Chief Internal Auditor aimed at answering the outstanding questions relating to Grantham High Street in an objective manner. So if you have any queries, please speak to your group leader in the first instance. So it's probably better than going to OSMB.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that announcement.
Okay, on to item number 6. Visitor economy
Chairman,
update.
sorry, just a question, please. The investment prospectus that Councillor Baxter's referenced just then, is Councillor Kelly able to advise when the LCC prospectus and or the combined authority prospectus will be shared with the committee? I've just gone onto the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority website and they don't have it available. It just says their prospectus is coming soon. So can the executive member advise when both will be ready to be reviewed?
Councillor Kelly.
Councillor Dyer, I can't speak on behalf of the mayoral authority. However, I will defer to the officers accordingly. Thank you.
Chairman, we'll be loading the investment prospectus onto the Invest Lincolnshire website on Thursday.
Thank you. Item number 6, visitor economy update. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 25 to 38. The actions required are the report invites the committee to support the council's continued strategic role, facilitating a collaborative approach to the visitor economy across all public organisations, and to acknowledge that officers are tasked with producing a cross-council visitor economy strategy for how we use all council levers and services to grow the sector, and 3, to agree that the strategy and work programme focuses on the 3 pillars of product development, business and promotion. The report will be presented by Mary Powell, Place and Investment Manager. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you. Morning, Chairman. Morning, councillors. We came to this committee last year to update you on how the tourist season was going and what the numbers were. As we are currently working on a new visitor economy strategy, it seems sensible to go behind the scenes of our work and for us to get a feel for how you'd like the visitor economy in Lincolnshire to develop and how that should be reflected in the strategy. We are completely visitor focused, using data and trends to guide our work. In everything we do, the three pillars of that work are product development, marketing, and business support. Completely interrelated. Leave one out, and the whole thing doesn't work. I used England Coast Path as an example of how those pillars work. So we prepared new content and the route for the website. We prepared a toolkit and held workshops with the businesses, and then the path was marketed. From the visitor's point of view, we've attracted their attention. The product is displayed ready for them to book, and the businesses are primed and ready. So you can see how the kind of process works of everybody being primed and ready. Of the three pillars, product development is the most important. And product is really a kind of a pompous way of saying it's what Lincolnshire is. It's those elements that people come to experience. It's what makes Lincolnshire Lincolnshire. And they are our strengths. They have to be genuine. It's our countryside, our heritage, the coast, our towns, aviation heritage, our walks, food and drink, our welcome. The list goes on. And product development can mean improving the quality of individual elements. So I suppose the example of the restoration of Lincoln Castle is a sort of classic example of product development. It can be theming and packaging of those elements, making it easier for the visitor to book and being kind of inspired by what Lincolnshire has. It could be changing circumstances. So perhaps the example of Lincoln City Football Club is something that we're working with them very closely on. And it might just be just doing it better. Because it's all about creating a great visitor experience. And you can't create that good visitor experience, nobody can on their own, because it's made up of such a variety of different elements. So without partnership to get the experience right will lead to kind of a fragmentary, inconsistent and kind of unsatisfactory offer. And that's not what we're about. We want it to be very joined up and well thought through and make it easy for the visitor to choose us. Very happy to take comments from members.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have any speakers? Vice Chair?
Councillor Corey, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for your report. And while it's encouraging that we had more visitors, but the adjustment for inflation means that we made a 1.8% loss, or it was a 1.8% reduction. So that's really sad, and I think it does take a little bit of the shine off. However, you did mention Lincoln City in your piece just now, and I enjoyed 3 products over the weekend. The bus tour through the city, the cycling Grand Prix, and some liquid refreshments at a well-known local hostelry. Lincoln was absolutely rammed. It was buzzing. The atmosphere in the city was amazing. So some things that we're in control of, like the castle and working with partners, we can't control what happens with Lincoln City Football Club. But when they have that success, we can put all the flags out and we can work in that fantastic partnership way. So I just wanted to say thank you for your report, and long may Lincoln City enjoy its success, because their success is our success. I might have some more questions later, but I just wanted to say thank you, Mary.
Councillor Condall, please.
Thank you very much, Mary. Just following up on that 1.8% real terms deficit. That was for 24, 25. Is that holding steady, improving, declining? I know we're going to get the data later on.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the data for the previous year we don't get until about June, July time. So I know that the businesses are still saying, you know, bookings are still very 11th hour. People are still very cautious. Yeah. And I think there was an item on this morning's news about bookings, and the trend seemed to be that, you know, that lead-in time was getting closer and closer, which is hard for planning, and the businesses do find that a struggle. I suppose it's those things, you know, talking about those things that you can control and those things that you can't control, and that thing about you know, that people's confidence is a tricky one, and holidays have always been the first to take the hit. You know, I've been around for so long that I've seen so many sort of ups and downs of the economy, but tourism always takes a hit. One of the first.
So the mood is still unsure, uncertain of the future.
Yeah, it is a little uncertain. I think that other places are doing worse. So I think it could be worse. I shall know more when the next figures come in. It's a difficult one to take a guess on.
No, that's fine. I was just trying to get a feel for.
Yeah, and different businesses suffer differently. So you can never be. You know, you'll talk to one business, and they're not doing too badly, whereas another is. And sometimes you can't always see the rhyme or reason. It isn't always geographical. It isn't always quality. It's very frustrating.
The second thing I've got there, you're a bit further down the page, you're looking at 169,000 clicks to more information such as book now. Do we actually have results of those people that are have actually booked something and see from the page that they actually have booked something in Lincolnshire?
Yes, we can.
I would be interested in seeing the results of that.
We have our figures quarterly, all the analytics from the website, and that kind of who's top. You know, so often Butlins can be very high, or Tattershall Lakes, but you know, the next quarter it might be different. So it is always very interesting to see who's getting the interest. But that rate is about, I think it's about 17%, certainly 17% in the last quarter of click-through to, and it might be that they've downloaded a map or a walking route, but they've actually done something. And even if they've only downloaded a walking route, to me that says that's an intent, isn't it? That they're planning a visit, and so from our point of view, it's the strongest indication of how successful the website is being. You know, you can say that you've had so many million clicks. That doesn't. I'm very. That's the figure that interests me the most. Is that intention to actually come and do something. So that's the one I rely on. And that's very strong, and much stronger than the average. So that's a positive.
Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thanks for that, Mary. I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay. First one, Councillor Corey's already touched on it, is around the sports element of it. So I was pleased to see within the work plan there is a specific theme there for sports and what that brings to the area. I'd welcome, probably this is offline if possible with me and yourself, I'd welcome a conversation to understand how the council works with, I'm going to talk football specifically because that's what I know about, how we liaise with those clubs, so Lincoln City for example, or some of our smaller clubs which do bring in a lot of visitors to the county every weekend. You know, in the last few years, you know, I've noticed a massive increase in the amount of our fans when we go away who stay for the weekend, whether that's a lads weekend in Manchester or a family weekend in Whitby, and vice versa, the away fans who come to us who stay overnight in Gainsborough. So I'm just curious about how we capture all of that data, because I suspect we're probably missing quite a lot of that. So I'd welcome a conversation on how we capture that, and we can work better with some of the clubs, particularly the lower league clubs. You know, Spalding United, for example, they've been promoted to the National League. They're going to see some fairly big clubs come in to Spalding, so that would see a big increase there. Second point is on the levels around. Oh, I've lost it now.
Do you want to just answer that one, Mary, and then we can come back to you, Councillor Bowles?
Yeah, we've been talking to Lincoln City, well, Hayley on my left particularly, and also with Scunthorpe United. I don't know. Do you want to come in now? But they have been very happy to share their data about fans visiting, which is really great that they're happy to share and they're happy to work with us. So we've got some real positives there. Hayley.
Yeah, just to add to that, so we reach out to their business development management team really and marketing, and understand how they're capturing that data. We're also working with some of the clubs on, for example, toolkits for businesses to maximise the opportunities around incoming fans as well. How we get them to come back with families after they've seen the match, etc. So there's a whole sort of suite of additional bits and pieces around marketing to those fans that we're underway with at the moment. And it's not just football, actually, it's all sorts of sports tourism. So it's the likes of the racecourse or Cadwell or Burley Horse Trials. It's lots of different elements of sports tourism.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. Can I just come back? We might have found it now. Sorry about that. Within the report, it tells us that the staying visitors generate over half of the economic output, but they only account for 14% of trips. So is there any specific evidence and examples we can give about what we're trying to do to increase those overnight stays? And then my final question is, the report recommends a cross-council visitor strategy. So how will we measure across the departments, highways, transport, heritage, what KPIs will we have in place for members to be able to monitor the delivery across the various different sectors of the council? Thank you.
Overnight stays, yeah. Yeah, overnight stays are the absolute sort of gold standard that we are aiming at. And our overnight stays were higher and they have gone down. And I think that is a recession, you know, that people are still taking trips, but they're doing it as day trips rather than staying visits. And staying visits have also got shorter, so people have, they are coming away, but they're staying for less number of days. So it is definitely a recession problem. But I think it's something that we, through the website, the packaging, to making sure that people are aware of everything that Lincolnshire has to offer, is very important to make people realise that actually it is a staying visit. There is too much to do. We are more than a day trip. So it is important how we present and how we do that packaging and theming. You know, so if you're interested in aviation heritage, you might come, say, to Battlebrick Memorial Flight, but did you know about the rest of the aviation offer. So it's about making people aware that we are we are definitely a short break destination. But the difficult economic situation is a bit of an issue. I mean, in terms of working with other parts of the county council, that's an incredibly important part of our work. So for things like countryside walks, one of the most popular parts of the website is the walks. It drives a lot of traffic. So we're better able to do the marketing of those walks, but Countryside obviously doing a great job looking after those paths. So it's how we work together, and that's a sort of an ongoing piece of work, and one that we want to develop even further. So there are things like the add-ons that you can do in terms of public transport. So get here, park your car up and leave it, but be able to use public transport to do a walk or visit an attraction. So it's because the website has so much ability of what we can do with it and capacity, that's where we can add the value to perhaps some of the work that other parts of the county council are doing. But it's an important area of our work.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. First question, I don't think it's probably for you, Mary. Who scheduled this agenda item for this meeting, for it to happen today? I just find it odd that the data that we're being provided for, the STEAM data that's within the report, is for 2024 that we had last year. The committee meeting last year was in June or July time, and we had the most up-to-date data. It seems ludicrous that we're coming here today for our annual visitor economy update, and the data that we're receiving is the data from 2024. Why are we not meeting to discuss this when the most up-to-date data is available? If someone could answer that, that would be appreciated, because my proposal that I'd like to go forward as a recommendation from this is that we have a further update in June or July whenever the actual visitor economy data is available. I think it's poor that this has come forward for this meeting. I'm really disappointed in that. So if somebody could answer that, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Justin.
Yeah, that was me. And if we need to bring extra data, then we'll bring extra data.
Councillor Corey, please.
Oh, I've not finished, Chairman.
Oh, sorry. Yep, go on.
Chairman. Well, therefore, Chairman, can I formally propose that we have a proper visitor economy update with the latest stats in June or July, whenever the latest data is available? I'm sure someone will second that proposal. Thank you. Just moving on, this update on the visitor economy, I read the report, and I think we mentioned whilst we were discussing it as well, it's very much an update on the website, the Visit Lincolnshire website, and it doesn't really go into much detail about the wider visitor economy and what's being done. I think, Mary, in your remarks, to be fair, you've alluded to some partnership working that the council is doing with other organisations, which is welcome. But I read this very much just as a update on visitlincolnshire.com rather than the wider visitor economy. So thank you for providing that context, but I think it would have been helpful if there was more detail in the report, because my question was the strategy that's been put forward today, it's heavily focused on marketing through Visit Lincolnshire. Within your report, you've alluded to other things that are being done behind the scenes, so I welcome that. But I think more context about the wider visitor economy within the report would be welcome. But and it's difficult to ask this question because we don't actually have the up-to-date data. But and we're going to come on to performance indicators later. What are the 3 measurable outcomes from this report and this strategy that we expect to deliver in the next 12 months? And as a result of that, if those outcomes are not achieved, what changes?
I mean, I suppose, in answer to the sort of first part of what you were discussing is that I'd seen this meeting as perhaps contributing to how you would like to see the visitor economy strategy that we're working on now, which hopefully will be complete in June, and that you'll be able to sort of give us a steer of where you would like to see that to see that going. So perhaps having this meeting at this point when we don't have the 2025 data as yet puts that into a bit of context. It's that opportunity for you to steer that strategy and to say what you would like to see in it. I can't 100%. We never get an actual date when the new 2025 data. Sometimes it's in June. It could be as late as August.
Justin, do you want to?
So it is a little difficult to plan around.
Thank you. The purpose of the paper is to help get your views on the breadth and content of the strategy, so that we can then go away and prepare it. So one of the things that Councillor Kelly has been very keen to ask us to do is to broaden from previous work, which was very much around marketing and promotion as a result of the challenges that arose from COVID, and to look rather more at all of the levers that the council has. Hence why we're suggesting the 3 pillars and having that focus, which will be a bit different moving ahead. So it's difficult to say what the performance indicators will be because we've not gone through content and activity. So that's something that we would develop. What I would say is that we always will seek to look at both the outcomes, so that would be impact on local economy, growth of jobs in the sector, etc., as well as the outputs that we're delivering, things like the clicks on the website. So we will take forward the preparation of the strategy based upon this conversation and your priorities, and that will give us the chance to be able to show you how we shall measure it.
Thank you, Chairman. I haven't really had a response to my question other than things like clicks on a website. And I don't think this is a strong enough report for us really to get an idea of what's happening in the visitor economy. You mentioned what's being expected to us today as members, but actually if we look at page 29 of the report in conclusion, what it's actually asking us to do is the Growth Scrutiny Committee are invited to review the impact and progress to date and endorse our role within the wider local visitor economy partnership. Maybe I'm being a little bit simple, and often the answer to that is yes, but that doesn't say to review the strategy and for us to put forward our opinions on what's being proposed. So I think what you've alluded to, you want from us as a committee, is not within this report at all. As far as that's how I read it anyway. So I think the report perhaps could have been more detailed in what it was asking us. But what is the draft strategy as it currently is? Because this isn't the draft strategy, is it? So no. Can we be sent the draft strategy so we can actually review and comment on it?
Justin, do you just want to answer that one?
Yeah, the actions required on page 25 set out the things that we were asking of the committee, the third one of which was that we recommend the focus of a strategy and work programme is those 3 pillars. So we were seeking your advice based upon what's in the actions required section of this report.
And I suppose the website is the visible sign of our work, but it's only the sort of it's the bit that everybody sees. It doesn't actually show the amount of work that we do with the businesses and other partners in developing product and that business support and that welcome and all that sort of thing. But the website is just the visible sign of that.
Jim, just looking at the actions required at the start of the report then, we're asked to agree the strategy. Again, this report is mostly just about the website, as I've said. You can scroll through, you can see it just talks about the website. So can we be sent the draft strategy as a committee so that we can review what the draft strategy actually is ahead of when it comes back in June or July or whenever suitable?
Justin.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading a set of actions required which say you support our strategic approach, you task us with producing a strategy, and that you comment on the 3 pillars. So I think that we will be taking away from today, if you agree with proposed action number 2, that we will draft up a strategy and then we will bring it into the normal decision-making processes. Not that there is a strategy that we are looking for at the moment, but that you will task us today to go away and do it.
Thank you, Chairman. So there isn't a strategy at all that exists or in draft form? Yes or no? No. So just...
It's in preparation.
So if it's in preparation, there's a draft strategy then? If something's in preparation, it's a draft?
It's not finished.
If I'm writing an essay or a dissertation, it's in draft form if it's not finished, correct? So there is a strategy somewhere?
Yeah.
So can that be circulated to members? If there is a draft strategy somewhere that's either being written or in draft form, can we see it so that we can review it?
My proposal is that we bring something in full format to you when we've worked through the detail on it, as per action number 2.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, we've been told by one officer that a report doesn't exist, and we've been told by another that there's one that's being written. So we've had 2 completely different answers there. Anyway, just on moving on with the LVEP, or whatever it's called, following the cessation of Destination Lincolnshire, there is some detail in the report there about what is happening. Because they went bust, was it about a year ago? And we still seem to be in the dark about who is taking on responsibility for the local visitor economy partnership role. Is there any wider update other than what's provided in 1.9 of the report? 'Cause it doesn't look like we've moved far in a year.
Well, we have done quite a lot of work with the districts in setting up a strategic tourism group, deciding what we could salvage from the work that Destination Lincolnshire had done, and we decided that the destination management plan that they had written was out of date and not fit for purpose. So we have developed a new version which has been agreed by ourselves and the districts, that we're all happy with that. It is quite a complicated process working with Visit England, who want us to start again from scratch, although all the stakeholders were involved in all the work that Destination Lincolnshire did, so it seems somewhat unreasonable. But that's where we are. They want a new application. So quite a lot of work with the stakeholders has been done since Destination Lincolnshire went. And of course there was quite a lot of work when they went into liquidation that needed sorting out as a result of the way things happened.
Thank you for that. Chairman, I'm almost finished, we're pleased to know. We have I need to get these, I'll get them muddled up. We have the Visit Lincolnshire website, which is the one that's run by the County Council.
Yeah.
And then there are all sorts of Visit other places in Lincolnshire websites as well. How do we, the County Council's website, how does that compare against, say, the Visit Lincoln website? Do we have the data to compare them like for like?
Well, the Visit Lincoln website was one that was owned by the liquidators and had to be, so City of Lincoln Council had to retrieve it from, so it wasn't functioning for a considerable number of months while they negotiated with the liquidators. So we currently haven't had any data on that website for some time. Through the Strategic Tourism Group, we are resolving that. And there was another website in Lincolnshire which was in exactly the same position, in that it was run by Destination Lincolnshire and again had to be retrieved, which took an immense amount of time and probably money.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to summarise, really, I cannot see how we can comment on a strategy when we don't have the latest data for the last year. I cannot see how we can comment or add anything given the lag in the data that's coming through. So I don't really think this is an appropriate time for us to comment on any of this. So just in addition to my recommendation, Lindsay, if that's okay, can I also ask that for that meeting, the draft plan, the draft tourism strategy is circulated with the committee. Either I'm happy for that to be emailed out to us informally, but we can see that, and then in June or July, whenever is applicable, we have the latest data, we can then revisit this entire item and provide feedback on up-to-date data. There's no point commenting on data that's 2 years plus out of date.
Councillor Kelly.
Councillor Dyer, I hear your requests. However, I fully support the officer's position in regards to this. If you revert to the actions required from this Gross Scrutiny Committee, Action 2, that the Gross Scrutiny Committee, that officers are tasked with producing a cross-council visitor economy strategy. Tasked with producing. The strategy has not been finalised. They are being tasked for producing. It's in draft format. If I have a pile of bricks and a load of cement, I don't have a house. Therefore, the strategy document is not in a position or a condition for it to go to scrutiny so that the scrutiny process adds real value. It needs to be in a condition where it can be properly scrutinised so that we're optimising both time, resource and your time as well, so that we're getting the best possible product we can do. So when the document, which is still being produced and polished and shaped accordingly, is in a condition where it can be released, then it should be released. But I hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Chairman, so that's now 2 people in the room have said we have a draft strategy that's in place. Someone else said we haven't. Even if you're building a building, Councillor Kelly, as Councillor Corey has just said, you have a plan, you have an outline before you start to build the strategy. I think we can have more detail as a committee to comment on rather than a report which mostly covers a website with out-of-date information and no plans or anything to comment on. That's simply my point.
Yep, I hear you, but if you were to be given a draft strategy at its earliest opportunity, when it hasn't been properly formulated or there hasn't been enough scrutiny and polish being applied to it, then it will have to come back to you again in due course and again and again and again. So let the officers do their work, and when it's at a suitable condition for release at the first opportunity, then it should go for scrutiny. Thank you.
Chairman, I still stand by my request that the committee is provided with the draft strategy.
Okay. Is the strategy going to come to scrutiny, Chiara, when it's finished?
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, as with all pre-decision scrutiny, the document will be on our list of items to be programmed as soon as we get notified formally that it has been added to the forward plan for a decision to be taken on. There is opportunity always if officers and members of the committee see this as a fit step to engage, to consult beforehand in an offline session, perhaps in a mini workshop, but we will be having it as part of our work programme. Thank you.
Okay. So would it then be possible to have the data that's coming in June as a part of that scrutiny, and we can scrutinise the strategy with the most current data then? Would that not be the best solution here?
It wouldn't be. No, not on this occasion. If members would allow us to work offline and get our dates sequenced appropriately, then we will be able to come back to you with a solution, and we can communicate that via email following today's meeting, if that is acceptable. Thank you.
I think that's the best way forward. Do you have any more speakers?
Councillor Corey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's nearly midnight. But I don't think we have any idea whether we still have a pile of bricks or planning permission and architect's drawings. But Councillor Dye has preempted quite a big chunk of my questions, so I think I thank him. And I won't repeat them, but I do thank Mary and Justin. for their responses. As we appreciate, Lincolnshire County Council is uniquely placed to support our visitor economy. So my overarching question is, how are we using this unique position? And I assume this is in the draft strategy or the pile of bricks in whatever its current form. The website is important, but it's passive. And as we've heard, and I do support Mary on this point, it's not just how many clicks we have, but what then people do after that. So I understand that about websites. And ahead of further reports and the draft strategy, whatever form and whenever we get it, I would like to know when and how do you capture things like bed stays, wet sales and food sales for events like the Grand Prix? Do you then follow up with the organisers of the adjacent sportive and the Doddington sportive, for example, to add value to these short stays and encourage future events? And would you be able to email any data to the committee, or will that be in the strategy? And if it isn't planned for the strategy, could it go in? Because I think that's, pretty key. Thank you, Chairman.
I mean, we do work with businesses, and we do welcome data from them. Some businesses are great at supplying us with data about, the success or failure of their own businesses. Some are much more reluctant, and that is quite frustrating, because we want to know for the reasons that, sort of that how it fits into that overall picture. We're not sort of wanting to kind of be intrusive in terms of that business, and that's a difficult area. And some businesses get it, and some just are really quite protective of their
through
data.
you, Chairman. No, I understand that, but we've got things like the footfall counter that big administer. So when do we get all those, and when do we consolidate those and say, this event did this and it brought this much in, and this is what we did to support it, and build on that for future years.
Hayley does the sort of business support, it's her speciality. So I'm going to bring her in because she is talking to businesses all the time.
Thank you, Mary. So in terms of specifics for sales and impact and footfall, we do lean into colleagues in districts and city council as well. We also attend things like the Future High Streets Forum and the Bailgate Guild, and that's when we will get feedback regarding that specific data. So, yeah, that's what we take as indicators for those sort of specific events, I guess, really. We also lean into specific organisers. For example, with the castle, it would be Cuff and Taylor, and understanding what those sort of visitor numbers are as well. So there are various sort of means, really, dependent on what the measures are. We take that data from those individual sources, but it is very I guess there are some very specifics just in terms of the work that Lincoln Big do as well, and that data that they collate, the districts with their car park data, their mobile phone data, so there are various sources that we're able to collate that.
Thank you, Chairman, and that will be in the strategy, formalised in the strategy, I'm guessing, hoping, asking.
That's all part of how we make decisions as to future activity, so you will see that summarised,
Thank you. If you're talking to businesses all the time, would there be any chance to have some of this data put into the next pack? For example, I presume you could get all the data for Lincoln Castle, the average visitor per season, if the average amount spent is going up or down. I'm sure places like Butlins will give you average amounts and stuff like that. It'd be nice to see if there's any trend in the areas as well. So, sorry, Councillor
that goes to culture.
Yes.
Or that for the castle, that goes to the Culture Committee. It would be nice if you came here. Just saying.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Councillor Grantham, please.
Mary, Hayley, I think to get a 2.7% increase is, particularly in that time, is a a good achievement, so well done on that, even with a bit of decline because of the inflation. But with the strategy, I would like to go more into the media as such. And is this organic growth, or do you use a bit of paid advertisement in that?
If you can as well. It is largely organic growth, but we did do a marketing campaign in the summer of last year, because obviously we were concerned about how business was going and felt that we needed to do extra. So we did run a campaign last year. You want to report on that?
Yeah, so in the summer of 25, we ran a campaign called Time to Visit Lincolnshire. We did that across paid for socials, radio, out of home. We engaged with an influencer. We did broadcast, Smooth and Heart Radio, papers as well, newspapers, regional newspapers. So there's a whole host of activity around that. That stretched from July through to the last bits of activity was sort of end of September, October time. And then we were able to have legacy assets that we now activate into this year as well. That campaign in that period that we monitored from July through to October provided around 8.7 million opportunities to see Lincolnshire as a holiday destination across all of those channels. And in terms of value for money and sort of spend per impact, it was less than a penny per opportunity to see. So it was extremely good value for money. And it also meant that in terms of August, that was the most successful month on Visit Lincolnshire that we'd had since the website relaunch. So it obviously did well to drive traffic to the site as well. And then coming into this year, I mentioned the legacy assets. So we were able to reactivate that radio campaign with the existing advert coming into the start of the season at Easter this year as well. And just awaiting some of those figures, but it looks, all indications are that was successful as well.
Perfect. Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you. I've got a few, but I think my overall opinion of the report, and I mean no offence, is that this report in front of us is ambiguous, confusing and vague. And I'd add to that complacent. I echo Councillor Dyer's comments that we're being given data that's at least 18 months out of date. And even the actions required are ambiguous. We're talking about collaborative approach to visitor economy across all public organisations. So presumably we're collaborating with walk-in centres and the police and the Environment Agency and so on. That's odd. And then on the third point, the three pillars are declared on point 3 as product development, business and promotion. Yet over the page, on page 27, the three pillars are product development, SNAP, business support, nearly, marketing. Now, I'm not an expert in marketing, but I know that marketing and promotion are two related but separate things. So are we being asked product development, business and promotion, or product development, business and marketing? We've said, so can I just ask a information question? The appendix A, about esteem data, is this relating to Lincolnshire? Because there's nowhere in here that actually says that it is. So is it Lincolnshire?
It's Greater Lincolnshire.
It's Greater Lincolnshire. So it includes Scunthorpe and all the parts which are not actually part of what we know as Lincolnshire. That's interesting. And the LVEP, I don't know if the LVEP would be Lincolnshire or not. But yeah, so taking into account that the STEAM data appendix does indeed relate to Lincolnshire, Greater Lincolnshire, I don't share Councillor Grantham's kind of positive look at it, because although the first STEAM headline on page 31 says the visitor economy is increasing, the key verbs in the next 8 bullet points are decline, decline, remains below, dropped, declined, decrease, drop, fallen. That doesn't, to me, present what on page 25 says visitor economy had a successful year in 2025. But of course, the data in Appendix A doesn't relate to 2025. I see little or no evidence in the report that shows that we had a successful year. Lots of announcements that we did. Research tells us that visitors love Lincolnshire. What research? Carried out when and by whom? And in the conclusion, we're told that the website is performing very well. That's based on the data at the bottom of page 26, but we've got no frame of reference. So are these figures up compared to the previous period? Down? We've no idea. Also, we can't drill down. For all we know, 99% of visitors to Lincolnshire could be going straight to Vegas, and nobody visits the castle that's been mentioned 4 times. Or, alternatively, it might be entirely to Skegness and Lincoln. There's no reference to the breakdown across the whole county. If it's data for the whole of Greater Lincolnshire, then they could all be going to the north and northeast. So really we need, and I hope the strategy, if ever it emerges, will have some breakdown of what's happening elsewhere. Because, as I say, we're obsessed with the castle in Lincoln and everything that's in Lincoln. We don't seem to get very far away from Lincoln. So we want to drill down. There's also no comparison with other authorities. So we're saying that we've performed well and that we've declined by 0.5% and that day visitor numbers have declined. I've got, again, if the rest of the country has gone down by 10%, then that's great news. But I can't see where that information is in the report. The bit about the LVEP, which is the only reference to working with other authorities, is a strategic tourism group established by the county and with economic development officers from other local authorities. I'm glad that you're working with districts because I can't see any evidence of it almost anywhere else. Isaac Newton Trail is mentioned within the action plan, but there's been no correspondence as far as the responsible officer at South Kesteven is concerned. There's been no correspondence or comparing notes on the 300th anniversary of Isaac Newton. So I'm very interested in a trail. You've said there is a trail planned. Can you please send me that planned trail? I'd like to know where that trail goes, because if you can get the life of Isaac Newton into a trail without contacting South Kesteven District Council or Grantham, I would be shocked and surprised. So it's Lincoln focused. Oh yeah, we were talking about the LVEP. You want to re-achieve LVEP status. Are we trying as a county council to achieve the LVEP status, or are we trying to resurrect some new phoenix from the destination Lincolnshire? If it's us as the county council that are trying to achieve LVEP status, where does that leave North and North East Lincolnshire? You said earlier that the destination management plan mentioned on page 29 in the first paragraph, paragraph entitled "The County Council also takes a strategic lead." The destination management plan has been completed. Well, can we see that? If we can't see the economic strategy, then perhaps we can see the destination management plan and its action plan, whatever that is. The report confuses tourism and the visitor economy. They are related, but they are different. Councillor Kelly is going to Leeds next week, as am I, but we're not going as tourists, we're going as visitors. And every hotel in Leeds is booked out next week, but it's not for tourists, it's for visitors. And this report conflates tourism and the visitor economy. It also conflates strategy with action plan, because the work plan, it conflates strategy with action plan with work plan. There's a detailed work plan with mentions of major sporting events like motorbikes, and other bits and pieces. There's no mention of Soldiers from the Sky, which is a major initiative in the south of the county. I'm not sure if there's any mention of the south of the county in this report anyway. The Bayo Tapestry, I thought, oh, when I first read this, I thought the Bayo Tapestry is coming to Lincolnshire. No, actually, it's coming to London, and somehow that's going to spark our visitor economy. I'd love to know how. Sorry, your microphone's on, Mary.
Sorry?
Your microphone's on.
Oh, sorry.
So, also mentioned sporting events for Tour of Britain, and there's a very specific mention in this work plan that has presumably been proofread and checked before being brought to this committee, so as not to waste anybody's time. It says, if legs of a Tour of Britain come to Lincolnshire in September 26, I can find no evidence that they are. I'm on the Tour of Britain website and I can't see any mention of Lincolnshire whatsoever. So, as I say, ambiguous, confusing, vague, but most of all, complacent, because it doesn't show any direction other than business as usual. And yeah, we've got a great website perhaps, but what are we actually doing to bring people in, not only from outside Lincolnshire, but to get people moving around Lincolnshire to our great heritage? Thank you, Chair.
We meet as the Tourism Officer Group, which is county and districts, and we meet every month. We have had discussions about Isaac Newton with South Kesteven within that group, and also about the soldiers from the sky. We've been working with South Kesteven on that, and supporting them in that, writing letters of support for funding bids. So yes, we have.
Sorry, when? When did you last write a letter of support for a funding bid for South Kesteven?
I would have to have a look on my computer. It was when I wrote a letter in support of a bid that they did to Heritage Lottery. Sorry?
I'd be surprised if that was in 2025, let alone in 2026.
Well, you mentioned the project, and that was, discussions that we have had, and we have supported them in that. Put the information on the Visit Lincolnshire website. We at every tourism officers meeting, every district we go round each district to discuss what they're working on at the moment and how we can all help, offer advice, and that's a forum that happens all the time. So to say that we don't talk to South Kesteven is just not true.
Justin, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, Chairman, I fear that we're going into levels of detail that would come up in the more detailed strategy and any action plan which follows from it. What we're seeking today is a steer. Shall we take forward a strategy? And I'm hearing yes. Does it need to be data driven? That seems to be coming through very clearly, so yes. Do we need to look at product and comparing our product to other areas? Yes. So if you're in agreement, Chairman, I would like to work with the team on developing that and bring a proper draft strategy against those type of matters to a meeting as soon as we can, and in a format that will allow for the Scrutiny Committee to both scrutinise the proposals and also give us further steers before we complete the strategy. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Just a reminder, please address the questions through the chair. Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, I mean, I made quite a number of points in there, and most of them have been ignored. And one that's been ignored is actually related to the actions required about, are we about product development, marketing and business support, or are we about product development, business and promotion? I mean, I was hoping that I might be reassured by officers that the report is not ambiguous, confusing, vague and complacent, but I haven't had any such reassurance.
Mary, do you want to answer that?
I can only apologise if it is ambiguous. I hadn't thought that it was. I mean, there's various things that you've mentioned that I could answer if we have the time. The Visit Lincolnshire website actually does cover Greater Lincolnshire, and a lot of our work, because we are visitor focused and the visitor doesn't really understand local authority boundaries, is that we tend to work on a sort of a Humber to the Wash approach to Lincolnshire. So there's, in terms of the STEAM data, we have Greater Lincolnshire information, we have Lincolnshire information, and we have information for every district apart from South Holland, who don't contribute to the STEAM data. And the process is that each district supplies their data to us, and on business.visitlincolnshire we put all that data so that yes, we have it down to district level, up to and including North and North East Lincolnshire, but excluding South Holland, I'm afraid. And then it's sort of accumulated into the Lincolnshire and Greater Lincolnshire. I think we've probably mistakenly, I've used the Greater Lincolnshire data in the appendix, but then of course the website covers Greater Lincolnshire. So I think that was the sort of the method of my madness. The Bayer Tapestry, Visit England are coordinating a lot of the promotional or marketing effort. I think we tend to talk about the intermingle. But if you prefer that we just said marketing or just promotion, that's fine. But Lincolnshire does have very strong Norman connections, particularly with the cathedral and the castle, and we have submitted that information as part of the Norman story that Visit England are using as part of the Bayer Tapestry promotion. So we take any opportunity that we think is relevant and that will do good things for Lincolnshire. We take those opportunities, small or large. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to come to the British Museum to see the Bayer Tapestry. Will come up to Lincolnshire, but if we got a percentage of that, it's worth doing.
Okay, Chair. Thank you for the answers. The other question that hasn't been asked is how this relates to the Greater Lincolnshire Combined Mayoral Authority, because obviously the Mayoral Authority covers the whole of Lincolnshire. It has its own business and infrastructure body, and it may be that the Mayor can bring in tourists from Taiwan and Qatar and all the other places that she's working with. And so when you say you're working with, when we say we're working with other public organisations, can you tell us exactly how we're relating with the Mayoral Authority?
Mary, do you have an answer for that, or? Just
okay.
So the Mayor recently set up a visitor economy panel. They met middle of last week, and that information and the views that the panel brought will be used to inform the delivery of the destination management plan and the strategy, with the tasks I was suggesting the team will take forward 2 or 3 minutes ago, will reflect the things that the County Council can bring to that, and we will work with the Combined Authority team so that we ensure that we are complementing each other.
All right. Councillor Baxter.
Chair, it would have been helpful for that to be mentioned in the report. It also, Mr Brown has just contradicted a comment earlier that he said it will inform the destination management plan. We were told the destination management plan was completed. So I just don't get, like the economic development strategy, is it a thing, is it not a thing, is it in draft, is it not in draft? The destination management plan and the action plan and all this, I'd kind of like to see them in any form. And yeah, so again, it's exposed that this report isn't actually telling us what's happened. If there's been a county-wide, mayor-led a visitor economy panel, then that's surely relevant to how can we scrutinise visitor economy in Lincolnshire if we're not even told that there's a mayoral panel? Sorry, Chair, I'm disappointed.
Thank you. Do you have another speaker?
Councillor Daesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for Justin Brown. When we had a last detailed strategy, and is that strategy part of our continual improvement?
So we developed a strategy coming out of the COVID lockdown because it was important to ensure that we did everything we can to help businesses to attract people at a time when people were not travelling greatly, and that led to the Visit Lincolnshire website. And yes, the idea of our strategy will be to improve and develop from that particular one. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Do you have any more speakers?
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Just whilst Councillor Baxter was speaking, I went back to last year's update that we received, and the update that we received last July on the LVEP and the situation that was ongoing there. There's quite a detailed agenda item that we received last year, actually, that goes into what measures stakeholders are going into. I think they'd upped meetings from monthly to fortnightly last year. There's a draft governance plan. There was county council activity plan. There's all sorts of measures that were being taken that we were briefed on last year because of the demise of Destination Lincolnshire. Quite comprehensive, in fact. But then I compare it again against what is included within this report, and it's just 5 or 6 lines, isn't it? So just in addition to my proposal, Chairman, when this does come back in July, can we have as a committee a full update, please, on the LVEP situation? Because actually the actions that were put in the report last year were quite comprehensive, and I've got no idea a year on where we are. Is that draft governance model still in operation? Are you still meeting fortnightly? And there was all sorts of other steps that were being taken that we haven't been updated on this year. You know, it doesn't say much at all in this year's update. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers? Okay, so you're still happy to propose that, and then seconded by Councillor Baxter.
Chairman, can I just seek clarification? Councillor Dyer has just mentioned July again, and I'm not sure that there'll be anything ready for July, and I don't want to set the committee up to fail if Justin could give us some idea of when it's likely to be ready.
I would expect the autumn, Chairman.
Is that all right?
Chairman, why did we get the data last year in July?
Justin?
I would expect that a draft strategy will be coming here in autumn. So I was answering the question of when will you be able to bring the strategy here, and that's when I expect it to be in the autumn, Chairman.
Thank you, Justin. That's pre-decision scrutiny of the draft strategy, which would naturally come forward anyway. What I'm asking is because this year's, what are we calling it, visitor economy update doesn't actually include the data for the last year and doesn't have the detail now that I've discovered on the LVEP, I want a proper update in July on the visitor economy data so that we can have the latest picture ahead of pre-decision scrutiny in September for the strategy. I think that's what my request is, Mr. West. If I need to make it clearer, please let me know.
We will, yeah. I'm not a data analyst. I'll need to go away, take some soundings on when the data will be available, what it will look like, and we will bring the data back to this committee.
Okay. Is this no longer needed? Yeah. So I move that the report be received and ask that comments raised by members be reflected into the draft strategy that will be brought back to this committee for review. The timeline of this will follow in due course, as Justin has noted on. So please raise your hand if you agree. This is your amendment. And any dissent? Abstentions? I think it's unanimous. Thank you. No more speakers, Vice Chair? No? Okay. We're just going to do the vote for the actions required. Yeah. So on to the proposal from the report. I move that the report... No? Okay. Then we will move on to the next item. That was the amendment.
Yeah, we still need a vote on the 2025 data coming back to the committee beforehand. Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
He's been captured, yeah.
So we can go to item 7 now. Item number 7, youth unemployment in Lincoln.
Point of order. Are we not supposed to vote on the recommendations in the report? The ones that I complained about, the support the council's strategic role, blah, blah, blah.
I believe that is what we just did, isn't it? Yeah.
Well,
with the amendment added.
Well, in that case, when you said to Councillor Dyer asked, is this voting on my amendment or similar? And you said yes. So I assumed we were voting on the amendment that was put forward by Councillor Dyer and myself. I don't know if anybody else was confused, but I don't feel like I've had an opportunity to vote on this.
Thank you. Just to clarify, what you have shown your support for is that you support the contents of this report, which include a reflection of the actions required, your support that was shout, and your views in the elements of the report holistically. And we have added also the fact that the committee has requested that a draft strategy be brought back for consideration, and that the comments that you raised as part of your consideration of this report are reflected when drafting and finalising a version that will come to this committee for consideration and scrutiny will look like.
Thank you. In that case, I would like it recorded that I abstained on that vote. It wasn't clear what I was voting on, and now that I know, I'd prefer to abstain. Thank you.
That's okay. On to item 7, youth unemployment in Lincolnshire. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 39 to 48 of the agenda pack. Actions required. The report invites the committee to recognise youth unemployment as a cross-cutting priority for Lincolnshire's economic growth, labour supply and long-term prosperity. 2, to support the further development of a coordinated Lincolnshire-wide approach to youth employment, aligning existing and incoming programmes such as the Youth Guarantee, Careers Hub activity and DWP provision. Request that the officers produce an action plan to improve the coordination of youth employment activity. The plan should include measures to strengthen employer engagement, address transport barriers and maximise the use of social value and procurement to create apprenticeship and employment opportunities. And 4, to request officers to work with the Greater Lincolnshire Combined Authority to bring forward proposals informed by the Transport Board for addressing transport barriers affecting young people's access to employment, skills and training. The report will be presented by Alex Nightingale, Skills Delivery Manager. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm introducing this paper on youth unemployment in Lincolnshire, which aims to provide an overview of the issue, the evidence behind it, and some of the strategic considerations for how we might respond. In developing this report, we've drawn on a combination of labour market data, including Department of Work and Pensions Intelligence, partner insights from across employment and skills, and education programmes, and importantly, feedback from young people themselves. So that includes youth voice activity, local research, such as the network's work in Lincoln, and wider insight into barriers like transport, mental health and access to opportunity. So what this has shown is quite consistently is that youth unemployment in Lincolnshire is not necessarily about a lack of provision. Instead, the challenge is more complex. Outcomes for young people are shaped by a combination of structural and place-based factors. So that includes our rural geography, transport limitations, and an economy dominated by small and micro businesses. This means that many young people who want to work are still facing multiple overlapping barriers. whether that's confidence and mental health, affordability, or simply navigating what can be a very complicated system. So the purpose of the paper is not to present a single solution, but to set out clearly what's driving youth unemployment in Lincolnshire in our context, help build a shared understanding of the issue, and highlight some areas where a coordinated action could make the most difference. In particular, the paper invites consideration how we strengthen coordination, better support employers, and improve access to opportunities, and ensure that young people, especially those facing the greatest barriers, are not left behind. So I'll pause there and invite any questions or discussions from the committee.
Thank you, Alex. Do we have any speakers, Vice Chair?
Councillor Baxter first, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Again, there's almost no data in here at all. There are no statistics, actual numbers, let alone any comparison with other counties or other parts of the country or national averages. There's no breakdown within the county. So we have got mention of kind of generic Lincolnshire issues about large travel to work distances, but from this report, I don't know if the situation is better or worse for young people in Sutton-on-Sea than it is in Lincoln or Louth or Stamford or Spalding or anywhere else. So some drilling down would be very welcome. Perhaps that will come in another report that we are commissioning, that, or is it a report, strategy, whichever it is we're asking for. And yeah, so I'm disappointed in the lack of actual detail, and I'm also a bit disappointed in the Lincolnshire-ness. There's a bit that identifies Lincoln in this report, but there's an awful lot that is kind of generic about needs across the whole country that would be true in any county. My colleague, Councillor Cleaver, was given a briefing on Friday, for which he is very grateful, and at that briefing, he was given an idea that the situation in Lincolnshire is better than the situation nationally. I don't know if anybody in the room is able to comment on that. I think that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter, for the feedback there. If within the references, if you like clarification in terms of the claimant numbers for each of the districts, we've got that. I didn't want to include it within the report because my direction was to create something quite broad that we could look at the whole issue as a larger piece, I suppose, rather than delving into specific data. So that what was the other question that you had? Sorry.
How do we compare with the rest of the nation?
So, on that point, the employment, youth employment in a proportion of the population that's able to work within our area, youth unemployment is higher than the national average. If you need specific numbers on that, I can go away and find them, if that helps.
Yeah, yes, please. Is it a bit higher or much higher? Because that makes a difference. If it's just a bit higher, then that's less of a problem than if it's much higher. I also wondered about apprenticeships. I can't immediately see any reference to apprenticeships in here. There may be something about working with significant employers in the county, which I think we're relatively good at, but I can't see it reflected in here. Apologies if I've missed it.
Again, we haven't included specific programme numbers within the report because that wasn't the intention behind what we're looking at for this in particular. But if you want us to go away and find those numbers for you, I'm sure that wouldn't be an issue.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not talking about the numbers in that case. I'm talking about the concept, the idea that our major and minor employers across the county might be part of the solution, and so might apprenticeships.
Yeah, so apprenticeships are certainly a programme that we can support young people to get in. I think around apprentices, again, some of the barriers that we've highlighted here around access are still the same and still relevant. Whether it be transport, whether it be mental health, some of those, the rurality of the county still makes accessing the apprenticeships difficult for young people.
Councillor Corey.
Thank you. This is another follow-on from Councillor Baxter's point that he'd made. And I note the report and the list of papers referenced, but I really do have to agree with Councillor Baxter. It is very light on data. For example, in the Director of Public Health's annual report, we have heat maps and graphics showing where issues are concentrated and where resources should be targeted. How concentrated pockets of unemployment overlay with lack of public transport, etc. We want that data. That's what we're here for. So when can we have the data? Will it be at the next meeting or can it be emailed to us directly? Thank you.
I don't know specific data where we can get that data for, but if that's a request, we can certainly go back and pull something together for you that can give you that.
Councillor Dyer? Oh, sorry, just
On the forward programme for this committee, you will see that there is a State of the Economy paper due to the June meeting. That will have significant levels of data, but I guess a quick summary to assist with this debate to give Alex a bit of a steer on the shape of the action plan that he's proposing is, if you remember at the first meeting of the Growth Scrutiny Committee, we gave you an overview of a set of issues, and what we recognised was that youth unemployment and unemployment for 55-plussers both were substantially higher than national average. We gave you information that showed that apprenticeship numbers in Lincolnshire are higher than the national average, and this paper talks about the challenge that small and medium-sized enterprises have in terms of having lots of people coming to them, encouraging them all to take different trainees, etc. So I guess piecing together 2 or 3 pieces of information we've provided over the past 12 months and with the prospect that the State of the Economy paper in June will give you significant data as well. So what we're looking for today is a steer very much. I know one of the things that we have put into the paper relates to public transport and rurality, and I know that's something that Councillor Corey had asked us to look into a couple of meetings ago. So again, we're drawing together various threads that have been to this committee over the last 12 months.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, Justin. Yes, thank you. If we could take a look at the Director of Public Health report, that's really, it's such a, you probably don't have the budget, but it is very graphic and very visual and will help people, particularly those members who don't have a long history of economic development or of sitting on this committee, really understand what the issues are and what it means, particularly for their divisions as well, and how they fit into it. That I think that would be helpful for me, and I hope it will be helpful for the newer members as well. Thank you.
Have another speaker?
With that, Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. It's clear that if somebody's employed from a young age and they get qualifications, that should hopefully set them up for life. So it's important that we support that as much as possible. One thing that this council has a role in, and it's noted in the report, it's that we're a large employer in Lincolnshire. So apprenticeships, etc., are something the council should be maximising. But it's not just apprenticeships. So, for instance, with the Hike and Relief Road, Balfour Beatty is the lead contractor. They've reached out to colleges and training providers, and they're supporting them with training opportunities, on-site work experience as well. And all of that adds into what this council is doing to support young people in gaining qualifications to hopefully get a career in whatever they want to achieve. So it would be amazing if we, as a committee, could understand exactly what this council is doing, and are we, at every opportunity, supporting young people where possible. I don't think I would have been aware of the Balfour Beatty connection if I weren't going through my division. So a lot of good work happens, and it would be fantastic if it was all reported through this, so that we know, and if we know where any gaps are within the organisation as well. When I read this, and it's just that as we're embedding into the new structure in Lincolnshire with the mayoral authority, where does Lincolnshire County Council sit with the broader strategy when we have the mayoral authority. I appreciate as an employer we've got a critical role, but when it comes to setting Lincolnshire-wide strategies, where do we sit in that relationship? That's my first question, Chairman.
Thank you. Justin, do you want to answer that one?
So the combined authority is made up of a number of constituent organisations, of which the County Council is a voting member. It has an employment and skills board, which again the County Council sits on, and that's where some of the employment and skill, that is where their employment and skills policies are agreed and signed off. The combined authority, and you know, I can't really speak for them, but they consult widely on the strategies that they are developing, and as officers we will provide a written submission to each of those strategies, and the totality of those submissions from LCC and from others are then considered at the Employment and Skills Board when it comes to employment and skills strategies. We're of course also an important delivery partner with the combined authority, both in terms of commissioning Adult Skills Fund in partnership with them, but also in terms of using some of our social value capacity as you've described.
Do you want to come back on
Thank you, Chairman. And it just brings me on, I haven't got my notes up from our meeting just in. One request I think would be worthwhile is that this committee is regularly updated on the state of youth unemployment across Lincolnshire, because clearly it's important that we're on top of that situation. Just on that, one of my colleagues in my group mentioned that there's very little mention in this report. I think it alludes to it, but there's a lot of organisations in Lincolnshire that support young people in either getting qualifications or getting into work. So some examples that I've been told of are Wheels to Work, Skills Boot Camps, Kickstart, Young Lincolnshire, and there's a Young People's Support Service, I believe that's in North or North East Lincolnshire. There's probably many more of those organisations as well, but what do we do as an authority to work with these organisations to make sure there's a joined up and coordinated approach?
Well, I think that's kind of what the report is highlighting, actually, that we want to go away and look at an action plan on how that coordination could be improved, because at the minute what we have is a series of different programs, initiatives that are all working on their program and initiative, and where there is natural opportunity to collaborate with an independent training provider or another program, it's done but at an operational level, whereas it's not necessarily done particularly well at a strategic level to align where there's opportunities and overlap.
Thank you, and that's a great answer, but how does that relate to what, and we won't be able to answer this, what the mayoral authority may or may not be doing? Because is that a domain that they would step into and coordinate?
So that's a possibility. So in the report I've mentioned the youth guarantee as a kind of policy approach, and there are other combined authorities that are part of that trailblazer at the minute. I think MCA is part of that. So whether that is then, I think the intention is that it is rolled out into other areas. So that would then effectively be part of the combined authority's role to ensure that that's delivered.
Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I did have a couple of questions just on some specific data that I was interested in, but given what's already been said, I'll follow that up with email separately, if that's okay. And then my second question is, when I'm speaking to businesses in my area, they're telling me that the sort of barriers to taking youth on through apprenticeships and placement is the complexity, the capacity to be able to do the paperwork. So when we're talking about the partnership working and working with people, what practical steps are we taking to sort of reduce that bureaucracy from those small businesses who don't have the capacity to do it, but would love to take some, youths on as employees?
Yeah, I think, again, probably more speaking to the initiative that I work on, the Great Lincolnshire Careers Hub. So what we're looking to try and do is, for those small and medium-sized businesses that perhaps occupy a sector, is to try and get them to collaborate with other employers that are in that sector themselves. So whether that be construction, so we've done a little bit of work and supporting the Construction Week as a careers hub around your partner and an organisation that supports that. So that's an example where lots of those employers are small and medium-sized businesses where they come together at a central event where we can get multiple schools to attend. That it minimises that burden, that the opportunities that those employers can provide.
Councillor Daesh.
Thank you, Chair. There are things here that I would have liked to see, and that is how, throughout the county, how many people came out of school, how many went into apprenticeships, how many were unemployed, how many found engagements in other jobs. With that figure, we can then collate what your figures are here.
Yeah, I think we can certainly look at doing elements of that. I think, again, coming back to that strategic element and what I'm highlighting there from the report in that terms of that lack of coordination is that there's lots of different data sets out there. So Department of Work and Pensions will have elements of that. From us, you know, we have student level data through the Future Skills Questionnaire that looks at kind of young people readiness. Then there's going to be, you know, the County Council team will hold information on NEETs. So there's all these kind of different sets of data that are basically owned by different organisations. So I think, you know, what we would like to try and do is how do we try and bring some of that together to make it a bit of a clearer picture for people to understand what.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at is that surely through the education system we can find out how many people, what they're doing and where they're going before they come in to take a job, before they apply for apprenticeships, before they're unemployed or they use other skills, vocational skills. That information before that happens can correlate into the size of the problem that you're trying to address, rather than showing the after effect or the after effect of supplying apprenticeships. And then what, I've got some more questions, but I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I think we can certainly do, you know, coming back to the data point, I think that, again, in the previous paper, that data is obviously something that, as a team of officers, we can take away and look at what we can pull together to, you know, to look at that, I think.
Councillor Conlon, do you want to
yeah,
go on?
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things, really. The apprenticeships would then, you'll be able to collate from the people that have left school before they go to college, further education, employment and apprenticeships. What sort of individuals are going for apprenticeships and going through the system, and are there people that are not going through the system because they find it quite complicated?
I think off the top of my head, I'd struggle to answer that in terms of the specifics, but I think, you know, anecdotally through the work that we've done here, that it's not as simple as these young people aren't going through that particular pathway for X reason. It's quite complex, whether it be the rurality piece, mental health. It could be actually individuals coming from disadvantaged backgrounds not accessing certain things as well. So I think unless anybody else would like to come in, I think we'd struggle to answer that at the moment in terms of give you a picture of what that looks like.
Justin, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think the picture Alex describes is right in that it's extremely complex. And I guess if we look at our experience over, you know, a very long time, what we do see is that there are a lot of young people who will leave school seeking to do something. And I'm deliberately being vague because at the age of 16, 17, often people are sort of less clear on a career path. And one of the things that we also see is that a lot of small businesses are very, very keen to take people on, but are really affected by the bureaucracy that Councillor Bowles has described. So I guess the piece of work that we are looking to do is to make sure that the careers advice that helps the young people address the something is stronger. We want to do something, and I guess the steer I'm getting from you, Councillor Daish, is very much that it needs to be people focused. So we want to do something which is about understanding from young people what the barriers are to them, and Alex has some ways of undertaking surveys that can do that. And the other thing that I think, taking away the point about small and medium-sized enterprises, which is made by 2 or 3 people, is that we are very keen to look at how we tackle that problem for small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, a couple of meetings ago, we spoke briefly about the model called an apprenticeship training agency, where a major organisation employs people and loans them to other businesses. And that is something that I think we should look to explore. It is very positive, but it can be risky, and we need to work out whether the risks outweigh the problems. But I think if we take forward your point about let's make sure that people are properly understood and that their motivations are understood, then that can probably help us to design an action plan that will address that.
You okay?
Yeah, what I would say, thank you for that. What I would say is that there needs to be a strategy not only for young students with STEM, because obviously they're going straight to university, but also those who want to take degrees online, because, which you've mentioned here about available travel, available abilities to actually pay for things. If there's a grant system that could be put together for individual students, as well as the ability to supply internet access, that may go a long way to solve lots of problems with the youth within this county. So I've got lots of other things I can suggest, but at the end of the day, we're working for the residents and the residents' children. So what we've got to ensure is that by moving forward, we can enhance all their lives for now and for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Daish. Councillor Condell.
Thank you, Chair. Just backing up really what Councillor Bowles says, at the Business Lincolnshire meeting we had at Dynex the other week, had a number of business leaders there who were expressing concerns about youngsters who couldn't communicate, wouldn't look them in the eye, wouldn't shake hands, and found it difficult to talk to them. This may be, or probably is, part of the generation of X and clicking and, well, I won't say emails, but texting. But is there anything that we can bring to bear on schools to try and get that sort of coordination with meeting people and talking to people and communicating there, so as when they do go out into the workplace, and it's not necessarily that they're going to go to an office or anything like that, but they do go out in the workplace and do speak to people, that they can communicate.
Thank you. Yeah, in essence, that is what the Great Lincolnshire Careers Hub is here to do. So again, just to echo, your point, we surveyed last year 14,000 young people through something called the Future Skills Questionnaire, and that drew out the very same information, that actually young people really struggle with the essential skills element of things like leadership, teamwork, speaking, listening. But we've got the data set to back that up now, so we can actually present that back into schools through my team to say, look, your students are struggling with the essential skills. What are you doing within your curriculums? What are you doing when you do take them out and look at work experience? How are you ensuring that what you're doing with them is supporting their skills to improve in that space? So we are doing elements of that. The new work experience guarantee that's been pushed nationally to try and get more workplace experiences into schools is something that we're really pushing as well, and we've spent a lot of time to facilitate more opportunities for young people to get out and in front of people especially as well. So another example of what we've done, actually next week we've got a small business that's been mentoring a group of sixth form students at a local school. They're actually going to present their business concepts to a group of businesses next week as well. So there's little pockets of different things that we've done to try and encourage that. But yeah, rest assured that's something that we're, as a careers hub team, really prioritising to try and improve the skills of young people.
Thank you. That sounds encouraging.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers? No. So we'll move on to the proposal. I move that the report be received and the actions required be supported, and thank officers for their presentation and assurances provided, and ask that the comments raised by members be cascaded for further consideration by the relevant officers and executive members as the actions described are being discharged. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? Any dissent? Abstentions? It's carried. So we will have a 10-minute break, which I'm sure you've all been looking forward to.
Chairman, we are now live.
All right, let's get back to it. On to item 8, the overview of the investment zones, enterprise zones, business rates, retention schemes, and how these designations may support economic growth in Lincolnshire. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 49 to 58. The report sets out the sectoral supports necessary to pursue productivity and competitiveness of the manufacturing economy in Lincolnshire. The committee is invited to agree that having a designated zone in Lincolnshire would be beneficial to the economy, task officers with carrying out further work to determine the most suitable location for a zone of this nature, and bring back a full recommendation to the 28th of July meeting of the Growth Scrutiny Committee, and 3, comment on the proposed methodology for determining the most suitable location. The report will be presented by Simon Wright, the Regeneration and Portfolio Manager. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, that sounds better. Apologies for that. Right, good morning. Thank you for that introduction, Chair. The paper today is a very short introductory paper, and I'll keep this presentation to match that succinctness this morning. Following previous consideration by this committee of the inward investment strategy in the autumn of last year, and at the bequest of members, officers have gone away and prepared a brief overview summary of investment zones and enterprise zones, and started to consider the benefits, what are the key characteristics of those zones, and whether or not that's something that might be of benefit to the county of Lincolnshire. I'm not going to go through detailed definitions of what the various zones are. That is included in this paper as an appendix. But in summary, these designations do provide a number of benefits. For example, taxation, capital allowance, discounts for occupiers, and non-domestic rating discounts, and other incentives which do attract significant investment to defined areas. They help barriers to development overcome barriers to development, and as a result of which, looking at case studies from across England, they do attract major blue chip companies to these sites. The successful zones seem to have a number of shared characteristics, and again, I won't list them all, but if I was to pull out 3 ones which I think are particularly relevant, they all refer to clearly defined areas. They all seem to demonstrate strong linkages between academic and research institutions, but the business private sector and also the public sector. They also demonstrate very strong local leadership to be successful. The county in Lincolnshire has a very strong track record in project delivery. We also have a strong track record in attracting third-party funding, and we do already demonstrate a number of sector strengths. Examples would be in the defence and agri-food sectors in particular. One thing I did want to stress in this paper, the County Council cannot unilaterally make these designations. These are designations which come from central government. So what the essence of this paper is that if members are agreeable to the principle of the benefits of establishing a zone such as this in Lincolnshire, then officers should be tasked with going away and doing a much more detailed piece of work to present back to this committee in July, which would then analyse the strengths and the opportunities, and dare I say the weaknesses of these designations, and seek a detailed approval of the strategy going forward with members. The final thing I wanted to stress as well, Chair, if I may, very much aligning this piece of work, if we are asked to proceed, with the officers from the Mayoral Combined Authority, who would be very strong in alignment as a strategic partner to make this piece of work successful. Thank you, Chair, for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Simon. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. The report talks a lot about North East Lincolnshire in terms of there's already a an EZ zone there, which is great for North Lincolnshire, but we're not interested in. We're more interested in the rest of Lincolnshire, our Lincolnshire. the word defence only appears twice in the whole report, both times in brackets and in the table near the back, which I was surprised at because it's always presented as one of the industries that we are leading in. On paragraph 2.3, it talks about shovel-ready sites. I don't want to go. Well, I do want to go raking over old coals to say that we've got these shovel-ready sites, and we had a plan to invest in umpteen sites around the county for enterprise investment zones, and at the budget meeting they were cancelled. We didn't want to invest in those sites. Sorry, the council didn't want to invest in those sites and kicked them out. On the list of potential sites in 2.11, it appears that we can't get more than 7 miles outside Lincoln. Possibly the A1 corridor would qualify as being outside Lincoln, but that's the one that seems to have the weakest case. All the rest are within 7 miles of Lincoln, which I think is a shame because we're a great big county and we've got other things going on in South Kesteven, obviously I'm going to say, but also the Holbeach in South Holland. There's a big food sector. It's got a university campus. 1 in 3 vegetables is either produced in or is canned, packed, frozen in Lincolnshire, and that fits the agri-food sector. So why is South Holland not on the list? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. What I would say is that this is not an exhaustive list. This was very much a starting point for further consideration. What we didn't want to do today is present a fait accompli to the Scrutiny Committee, so we haven't made any preconceived judgments on exact locations, nor have we made any preconceived decisions on what the sectors should be, whether it's defence or agri-food or a combination of different sites and different sectors. So that would be very much looked at in detail at the next stage of work, if that is what we're asked to do. And as I say, I wouldn't say this is an exhaustive list. We're not presenting a fait accompli. That we will certainly look at all other suitable sites across the county.
Thank you. I think those comments, of course, will be reflected. Do you have any more speakers? Councillor Dyer?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Simon, for your report and putting this together. Of course, I'd always make the case as close as these bids can be to Waddington and High Commeets, the better. So one of them's on the Relief Road route. So I think that one's fantastic, actually, Chairman. And I think the committee should endorse that one. But no, in all seriousness, often with these bids, I think you've mentioned that the council somewhere, I can't remember where I read it, has a history of attracting seed funding or funding from third-party organisations. Is it a drawback, whatever you want to call it, that as things currently stand, as far as I'm aware, we don't have any budget allocated at all to this, other than, I suppose, your time and your office's time in putting this together. If we were to move seriously with getting one of these bids together and doing the research and the analysis behind potentially having one of these sites ready to go, shovel ready or oven ready, as Councillor Kelly mentioned earlier, reminds me of Boris Johnson back in the day, would the council need to start seriously putting cash behind this for any potential bids for this to move forward in a serious way? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. The short, honest answer is at this stage, before having done that detailed piece of work, I don't know the exact answer to that. I think that is clearly something we would want to address and advise members of in July to consider the implications of that. But clearly there will be a range of considerations in terms of what's required to unlock certain sites and what those barriers to investment might be. So that will need to be looked at in detail as one of the criteria between now and July if we're asked to come back to present that paper to you.
Okay, so that will be detailed in the report for July for us to take forward. Okay, I think, let me just double check my notes on that. Just looking at these sites then, the sites that you've identified, The one that caught my eye, Lincoln Science and Innovation Park, so as Councillor Baxter alluded to, that's something where the council previously had ambitions to do something there. I think, if I remember rightly, at the full council meeting, ambitions still exist to do something there, but not with council funding. So how does that relate to the ambitions that we have for the Science and Innovation Park? And just on Teal Park, it's my understanding that I think when Liz Truss was in office for those 2 minutes, I think there was a potential bid for Teal Park, wasn't there, back in the day, if I remember rightly, for her, whatever she called it, investment zones or whatever it was. But with Teal Park, there's always a problem with energy supply, isn't there? So would we, to have that site being shovel ready, have to invest significantly in grid capacity for Teal Park to be something that could actually seriously move forward?
Again, and apologies for the consistent replies here. Again, it's something we'd have to look at in detail in the next piece of work. But clearly, those barriers to investment would need to be considered very carefully, and solutions and the costs of dealing with those solutions would need to be set out to members. So, again, really, we're looking for an invitation for members to go away and do that detailed piece of work and present it further.
Okay, and then just final point then, just on that, Simon. What resources are being provided? There's obviously man, woman hours in putting that report together, but have you been allocated a budget to do all of this as well? Because I assume there's a cost implication to carry out this on top of your day job and everything else that you're having to manage.
Yeah, that's a thank you for that question. I think my thoughts on that are that there are multidisciplinary team within the authority that can start to do a lot of the work and act as an intelligent client. And I think I'm working with colleagues in the room with me, such as Tony, we can start to do that piece of work. But I wouldn't rule out the need to bring in specialist advice, and I would then make the case to the authority to find a budget to pay for any special advice on more complicated issues such as leakage and displacement and all those sorts of outputs that we'd want to capture. So I haven't got a budget today, but I would be prepared to ask for one if the money could be found if needed. But again, I would stress there is a multidisciplinary team within the authority that could do a lot of the initial work as well and act as that intelligent client.
And then finally, I think the last one was finally, but another one on that. Finally, so would that be something that would be agreed then between now and your next update in July, or would that come for any pre-decision scrutiny for a budget to be allocated?
My understanding, Councillor Dyer, is that we would, again, if we're asked to do so today, the paper does set out some parameters that we would use to evaluate those key sites. In particular, I'm looking at paragraph 2.9, which sets out some characteristics which we would use as a basis for our further piece of work. So we wouldn't be bringing you a brief of what we would be bringing you the output of that brief. Does that make sense? Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Condall.
I'm just interested, don't have to go in great detail, but there's 3 options here: investment zone, enterprise zone and rate zone. Is there any, or what's the benefit of one over the other, or have you already got a preference on what we should be going for?
Thank you, Councillor. No, I haven't got a preference, again, and no preconceived ideas at this stage. My very broad understanding is that investment zones are more recent government designation, and there are 8 within England at the moment. They do, again, as my understanding, they seem to be very much sector specific. For example, in digital technologies, in agri-food, and I think the third, life sciences. So this needs more work, but they appear to have quite a tight definition, whereas the older enterprise zones, which are much more sort of long established, they do seem to encapsulate much more, a much wider range of industry sectors. So it may be that an enterprise zone might be more beneficial if it covers the sorts of industry that we want to capture. But again, we will do that piece of work to really drill down. I think some of the other benefits are quite nuanced in terms of the tax breaks, the investment unlocks and things like that, which needs to go be considered in greater detail.
Has the private sector come to you and asked for this, or is it something which you want to do anyway and you're just trying to find the best people to help fund it or be in the premises?
I haven't, thank you, Councillor. I haven't been approached myself directly by the private sector asking for this. Again, my understanding was this has been led by members at previous discussions, but colleagues may have had those discussions with developers. And could I invite Tony to comment on that if he has done so, please?
Thanks, Simon. We do quite a lot of work to understand what the investment market's looking for. So, as Simon alluded, a lot of this is sector-driven, and therefore different sectors encourage different types of investors. So we follow those investor categories on the basis of where that appetite sits, so that we can align the work we do with the appetite in the market for those type of sector investors.
One of the big problems which many industries face is with energy. So would there be an idea where there would be a shared energy source and that energy could be distributed between the businesses around that area? And if that is the case, would that stop it becoming like a mixed zone, or would it have to be a very specific kind of business?
I don't think that would necessarily be restrictive. So, and I think if that was a cost-effective solution to unlock a scheme, I think it's something that we would and should be looked at in greater detail. I certainly wouldn't rule it out at this early stage in the conversation.
Okay, moving on to the proposal then, if we have no more speakers. Same one. I move that the report be received and that the actions required be supported, and thank officers for their presentation, and assurances provided, and ask that comments raised by members be cascaded for further consideration by relevant officers and executive members as the actions described are being discharged. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? Any dissent? Abstentions? No, it's carried. Thank you. On to item 9. Scrutiny Committee Performance Indicator Review. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 59 to 62. The actions required are that the committee is invited to note the request made by Councillor Dyer and acknowledge the new approach that is planned. The report will be presented by Tony Kavanagh, the Assistant Director for Human Resources and Organisational Support. Also present in the chamber are Natasha Langford, the Corporate BI Officer, Transformation Systems and Performance, and Laura Hartley, the BI Team Manager for Human Resources and Organisational Support. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report you have in front of you is obviously in response to the request by Councillor Dyer, which is Councillor Dyer's request is there in Appendix 1. That the Growth Scrutiny Committee have the opportunity to scrutinise and comment on performance indicators prior to finalisation and reporting. Colleagues will probably be aware the previous convention was that KPIs were agreed between executive directors and executive portfolio holders and then published with the Q4 performance report as a subsequent appendix. Despite the previous convention, I think following on from Councillor Dyer's request, it's been agreed to introduce a revised approach to the scrutiny of KPIs. So I think going forward, members of the Growth Scrutiny Committee will therefore have the opportunity to review and suggest alternative KPIs which they consider could strengthen performance reporting. This will then be considered before executive portfolio holders, who will then finally decide on the KPIs to be reported for 26-27. Now, if I can just advise members that since the publication of the agenda and the report, what we're proposing now is that the format of attaching the KPIs as an appendix to the Q4 report is not best served, we don't think, in terms of to enable the scrutiny as required, given those measures will require a formal decision by executive councillors. So as a result, the KPIs will now be brought forward as a standalone report in addition to the Q4 report. So just for clarity, so we will return to this committee on the 23rd of June with both the Q4 performance report and a separate report for the proposed 26-27 measures for members' consideration ahead of that decision. Thank you.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that. And I think, from what I understand, that's being rolled out across all scrutiny committees, not just growth scrutiny. So I think that's welcome, and it's a welcome improvement that members can actually formally comment on PIs before they come formally to be observed. So hopefully that can be something we can move forward with on an annual basis. I appreciate, given the timeline that we have, when these, when, whatever, they're approved in June, there will still be a lag, I think, as you've mentioned, Andrew. And we might be getting KPI data for this year later on in autumn. So just on that, can we have the assurance that for future years, this process commences much earlier on, so that as we move into a new year and a new reporting period, this scrutiny of potential KPIs and the performance framework has already been done, so we're not playing catch up in future years. And just on the KPIs, I'd just like to thank particularly Councillor Kelly for your time and support a couple of weeks ago, and Justin and Andrew as well. When they are shared with the committee, the draft KPIs, I think, Justin, you made this point, that you will be presenting your draft KPIs, as, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to be reporting them as if they were in place, so we can see as a scrutiny committee how that will look being presented formally. Is that correct, Justin? Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was planning to mock up what it would look like.
I think that being mocked up, so we as a committee, we can actually see these KPIs in action is great. Do we have the same assurance, Andrew, from your areas within growth, so that we as a committee can see both as they will appear if they're agreed? And finally, I appreciate we've had time to go through the draft PIs for both your respective areas. When will they be circulated to the committee for consideration? I suspect someone's going to tell me, Councillor Dyer, when the reports are published. But if they could be provided sooner, I think, so that members could digest what's being proposed and we can have discussions rather than just a week in advance, I think that would be welcome. Thank you.
Did you want me to come back? There's a number of questions in that, Councillor Dyer. In terms of next year, yes, in terms of an earlier review and discussion around the KPIs, yes, we can do that. So there's no lag, as you rightly say. In terms of the mock-up of the KPIs, I'm just going to look behind my colleagues who. So Natasha's kindly said if the data is available, we'll be able to mock those up as well in terms of what that would look like for June, if that's okay. And given my age, I'm now forgetting what the last question was. Forgive me.
Circulated in advance.
It wasn't that hard, was it? Just again, I'll just look to colleagues behind me.
With the report?
Yeah, I guess it's probably going to be within the normal deadlines, I would suspect, given the work that needs to go in advance. But if we can, then obviously we would.
Just the point I'd make on that, and I appreciate the discussions I've had with Andrew and Justine, you've mentioned they're still subject to change, but actually the outline KPIs are there and they could be shared with the committee, couldn't they? I mean, I could tell the committee now, but I think I've noted them down. But if they already exist, why can't they be circulated? Perhaps not with everything, all the science and the performance-y stuff in the background, but just in advance we can have the basic outline of the KPIs earlier than a week before the meeting.
Andrew.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dyer. Certainly I think we'd look to endeavour to do that as far as possible. Whilst they are still in draft format, so we're finalising any tolerances and such with that, but through discussion with relevant portfolio holders, once if they're in a final position ready in advance of the publication date, then happy to commit to share that with the committee in advance. There's no issue in that respect, once we've had them signed off and approved. And I think following the discussion at the Scrutiny Committee, we would have most of the information available, hence we're putting them forward for publication. Pending the outcome of the Scrutiny Committee review of those, if there are any new indicators made and brought forward, that may impact on our ability to produce them from Q1. Those that we're proposing, we should have from Q1, which is why they're put there. But if there's something that's added in, that might delay those individual ones, say into Q2 or something. But certainly we can look at that request once they've been finalised.
Councillor Kelly.
Sorry, Councillor Dyer, just to reinforce what's been said, but also just to remind that objectives, annual objectives may change as a result of Q4 performance, so that may also impact on KPIs, etc. So it's just that level of flexibility, because they ultimately cannot be confirmed. Some cannot be confirmed because there may be additional change required, as I said, as a result of Q4 performance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Condell, you okay?
Okay, no more questions then. We can move on to the proposal. I move that the committee notes the report and acknowledges the new approach that is planned. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? Thank you. No. Yep, that's carried. On to item 10. The LCC windmill strategy councillor report. This scrutiny report can be found on pages 63 to 70. The actions required are that the committee is invited to note the contents of the report from Councillor Dyer and consider this formal written report and briefing on the emerging strategy. The report will be introduced by Councillor Dyer. This will be followed by input from Mark Eyre, Head of Strategic Asset Management, and Nigel West, Head of Democratic Services and Statutory Scrutiny Officer. Over to you, Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't expecting to introduce it, but that's fine. So the windmills, clearly, they're across the county, and it's in the public interest that these are handled with care. It's part of Lincolnshire's heritage, it's part of our culture, and it's just like the castle in many ways. It's important that they are preserved for the future as best as possible. Now, I think this agenda item was spurred by recent media reports for Ellis Mill in Lincoln and ongoing concerns there from local stakeholders that this wasn't being moved forward. So I put this request in a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was, following seeing that news article. I know, Andrew, when we've spoken previously, that the council has been for some time preparing a policy, a windmill policy, a windmill strategy, I think, actually, not policy, windmill strategy. That's something that's been ongoing for some time. And I just really wanted to put this formally on the public record and formally ask you, Andrew and Councillor Gibson, what is happening with the windmill strategy? When will we, as a council, have the opportunity to review that strategy? And it's important, I think, it's that hopefully you will provide a timeline today. And I think the outcome from this is that we as a committee can hold you to account on that timeline. Thank you.
Mark, did you want to just come in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Chair. Just in response to the request via the report, just to kind of give a summary of the report that was issued in response. So we have been working on the strategy for the 4 council-owned windmills. It's taken a lot of involvement from various groups, so we've engaged with the different stakeholders associated with each windmill. We've also done a social media campaign to ascertain levels of interest within communities, get people sort of knowing a bit more about windmills. We've reached out to third-party funders as well to see what opportunities there might be for funding for the works associated with windmills. They're in a poor state of condition, which is what is an aim of the strategy that is being developed, is highlighted at being addressed, is looking at options to make that better, how that can work through a form of strategy which looks at different ownership options. There has been a declared acknowledgement within the council that the service need is not there for running and maintaining and operating windmills as a council, but we are looking for options really to make sure that there's a viable operation for the future of the windmills, and that's what's going to be within the emerging strategy that would be brought for member consideration. So I hope that gives an overview of the report, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. I suppose my one question at the end hasn't been answered. Timeline.
So in terms of timeline, we've got a bit more work to do when it comes to working with the a couple of the groups that have expressed interest, and we've been given a extension of a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, to work with them. Once that's complete, I'll then be in a position to report to executive councillors on the full outcome of the strategy, at which point they will be able to give a direction as to when the actual strategy gets presented further and wider.
So just to confirm then, based on that timeline, say 2 to 3 months, so let's assume 3, and let's assume we're almost in June, so I've given you some time there. June, July, August, so by the autumn, September, property should be in a position to brief the executive members involved. So if we're asking as a committee in September what's happening, you should be in a position to either say a strategy will be moving forward at X date, or it's not being approved by the executive members. Is that a correct interpretation of what you've just said?
I think I'd say that the position we're in currently is that's the timeline. What I'd also say is it's subject to feedback around what the executive members give. So we've already been given some direction in terms of working a bit further with the groups. So I'm hoping to get the timeline that you've just outlined that I've gave you is along those lines, 2 or 3 months, and then it would come back around preparation around September time.
Councillor Dates, did you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, I've got to ask the question: why the deterioration in the windmills in the past administration, and why weren't there things put in place to manage them and to repair them and have a strategy that we wouldn't be where we are today?
Do you want me? I'll try and cover that one. I think there hasn't been a clear strategy around that set of assets, but I suppose it's a positive now that through the team we've got, we are working actively on that strategy. There's been a number of groups historically linked to each windmill. Some of them have had custodianship of those windmills. Some of them are no longer associated with them. So there has been a historic decline in investment because of a lack of a longer term focus. We haven't had a longer term plan for each windmill. I'd say that that's what the aim of the strategy is going to be, is that we have that focus so that there's some safety and security in the future.
Yeah.
Why is there a 99-year lease on Eckington?
I wasn't part of the decision making around that time. However, I believe that was associated with securing grant funding to enable capital works, but I wasn't, I'm not trying to shirk responsibility, but I don't understand the rationale at the time might have suited better than it might have done now for the placement of a lease like that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the information. Much appreciated.
Thank you. So if there's no more questions, we'll move on to the proposal. I move that the committee notes the report and acknowledges the approach that is planned. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. On to item 11, growth. Oh, Councillor Gibson.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't know whether to say anything or not. I just wanted to add, after you've had your vote, that the strategy is being written up and we are working with all parties that have shown an interest. I don't like to just do things on paper. I like to go and meet people, shake their hands and see what their proposals are. I've met two groups or two windmills, sets of groups, and I'm yet to meet the Lincoln group in the coming weeks. I just wanted to assure members that it's not just done on paper. I would like to go out and make sure we're doing everything we can do, looking after our heritage, but making sure the facts and figures stack up.
Thank you. On to the Growth Scrutiny Committee work programme. This is the last item on today's agenda, and the report can be found on pages 71-76 of the agenda pack. The actions required are that members are invited to comment on the content of the committee's work programme. The report will be presented by Chiara Hatsioanu, the Health Scrutiny Officer. Over to you, Chiara.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So as with every meeting of this committee, this is a standing agenda item that gives members the opportunity to review the work that is being scheduled for the next meeting, but also beyond that for the meetings ahead and until to the next year. So as you can see on page 72, the agenda for the meeting on the 23rd of June has been built up until this moment, and it contains 4 items of substantive business for debating. The rest of the agendas have been populated also in line with our decision-making obligations, but also in line with requests made previously by members of this committee. And to reflect back on the requests made by this committee and members back in our March meeting, I would like to give you a very quick update and a highlight of items. So as you know, the performance framework for KPIs for growth, including property procurement and commercial, is coming to this committee for a pre-decision at our June meeting. As previously requested, an update on Eventus Business Centres, contracts, leases and performance, and an addendum that has been promised to update you on the council lettings policy. There is a performance report for the commercial portfolio on the 28th of July's agenda, which is designed to precisely address these comments previously raised. So that should be satisfied through that. In terms of the request for work experience internships and industry placements linked to major projects to be discussed, this was considered today. Earlier we reflected on this matter. Previously, members have requested that English language skills are considered in terms of the wider economic and social impact they have, and we have been made aware that the Federation of Lincolnshire Colleges has already undertaken an analysis of that as part of the GLCCA consultation on proposed changes to their adult learning framework, and we've taken an action to share that with members. In terms of Lincoln Castle, an update on property investment works has been added onto the list of items to be programmed, and we will be able to confirm an actual date in due course. Members have also requested that we review the possibility of bringing forward the review of town centre improvements, which is a progress on action plan and recommendations, as well as impact and next steps. Unfortunately, the item cannot be moved due to sequencing of activities for the production of the report and update that will reflect on indices of multiple deprivation that are to be published soon. Finally, I just wanted to reconfirm what the committee members have asked earlier today in relation to an item to be added under the list of items to be programmed in relation to the draft visitors strategy. So thank you very much. This concludes my update, and I'm happy to take any suggestions, both today but also offline as well whenever members feel.
Thank you, Chiara. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you for that. My question was going to be, how were the actions from the last meeting on page 24 mapped on? But you've answered that, except for you said that updates on work experience and industry placements linked to major infrastructure projects was covered during this meeting. I don't know that it was.
Consideration of that theme was under today's agenda, is what I meant to say.
So I didn't see the major infrastructure projects. Was this under the NEETs thing, the youth unemployment report? If not, when was it discussed? Was I out of the room?
Would that not be in the enterprise zone part?
It was in the
talking about
it was in the young person's employment report.
Oh, okay.
I think it was in the young person's employment I mentioned about the opportunities as a result of the North Highcombe Relief Road and working with contractors. I think so.
Thank you. Moving on to the proposal then, we're all happy. Move that we receive the report and approve the existing work programme as detailed in pages 63 to 68. Can I see you raise your hands if you agree? Thank you. Any dissent? Abstentions? No, it's carried. Thank you. And that concludes the meeting. Thank you all for attending. I'll see you in about a month.